Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. I hope that everyone is pretty good today. Today I want to talk to you about re-entry anxiety, how students can cope. Now, for the past year plus, a number of our students have actually been attending school from behind the screen because they had the situation with the pandemic and COVID 19, and they had to socially distance or physically distance themselves from each other in order to create a safe environment. So, screens became the means whereby teachers could have communicated with students and students communicate with other students in the learning process. However, a number of our students are actually being asked to return to school so that they can have a face to face interaction with other students as well as with school personnel. So the question is, why were some students feeling okay, but now some are already starting to talk about feeling anxiety or feeling fear regarding their re entry into physical school? Well, for a number of our students, they started to feel okay with the idea of just being behind the screen. They were home and there were less distractions for them to contend with. Of course, there was the distraction of social media and the video games for some, but for other students, they didn't have much of that as a distraction because they were supervised either by a parent, a grandparent, or a responsible adult, or some of the students were of the age where they could have self-regulated and therefore knew that they had some work to do, so they set themselves down, they arranged their materials, their books, and so forth, and they just logged on onto the classrooms. So they had real no, didn't really have much of a problem using the technology, being on the computer, but at the same time remaining focused as opposed to being distracted by social media and video games. So some of our students who were in that setting actually started to feel comfortable or more comfortable than if they were in the face-to-face classroom. We also had the situation where some students were okay with this online learning as it was easier for them to get up on mornings. So for instance, some students who will have had to get up on mornings and get dressed, have breakfast, arrange their books, head out on the street to get a taxi or wait for a bus to come and pick them up to take them to school. They enter into the physical building and they wait for their various classes and so forth. These students now had the opportunity not to do that. So let's say, for example, their class started at 8 o'clock on mornings. Some of the students will have gotten up 7 as opposed to having to get up earlier than that to get ready. Some students may have even gotten up much later than that and be in time still to log on for their class starting at 8 o'clock. So they had that experience of now not feeling overly pressured to get up early on mornings. And also to the space where they were working, some students designed their own personal space. So they had their chair, they had their desk, probably on their desk they had some type of objects that made them feel comfortable, maybe on their walls. They had pictures or drawings that they stuck up of persons or animals or just general things in nature that will have made them feel really comfortable while they are engaging their various educational subjects or courses. So some students they pretty much were feeling okay with the idea of learning from behind the screen, but now they're being asked to return to school. And while some students are pretty much excited about the idea of having to return to school, some students are actually worried. Now the question could be asked, why? Why will some students be worried when it is that for a number of them, they will have experienced what school will have been like face to face, interacting with teachers, interacting face to face with other students around their age or younger or older. Why will they now be overly anxious or worried or concerned? Well, for a number of them, they will have been home and constantly they will have had to wash their hands, sanitize, wear their face masks, physically distanced from persons outside of their home. So they will have sort of grown accustomed to doing that for the many months that they were home. So these students, they pretty much started to associate proximity with danger. And for a number of them, they will have experienced where persons who did not heed or pay close attention to the restrictions due to COVID 19 may have succumbed to the virus or may have gotten really sick. And though they may have recovered, it will have been really difficult for them. And these students will have known that. So now we're asking them to go back into a face to face environment where there's a feeling that they themselves can possibly get sick, they themselves can possibly share the virus with other persons or bring the virus home to some of their family members. And for a number of these students, there is the concern, there's the worry, there's the fear. Now, every community, every school, at this stage, of course, will have your own way of how you're going to do your re-entry into the physical school system, if at all at this time that is what is going to happen. However, if it is that you are going to do a re-entry in order to reduce the anxiety that some of the students may have, here are a few tips. Tip number one, parents, and this is what parents can do. Parents can actually start preparing students by talking to them about returning, and this is critical. So, parents, you can start letting your children know, letting your young ones, your teenagers know that okay, you're going to go back into school, and these are some of the things that you might be expected to do. It's no longer that you're home and you're just among us, the family members. Now that you're going back out, you will be expected to sanitize, wear face masks. You're expected to follow specific rules that may not have been there before COVID 19 came on the scene. What parents can also do, the second thing, is you can start creating sleep and wake schedules. Now, the sleep and wake schedule has to do with the fact that your children or your child will have to either get up earlier now. So it's no longer they can just roll off from their bed or roll out from their beds and just log on onto the computer or onto their smartphones or the desktop or the tablets and be in the classroom. Now they have to get up, get ready, get dressed, fix maybe lunch, organize their school books, their school bag. It's no longer that it's just going to be on their desk there where they can have easy access to it. They now have to put it in a bag and a knapsack, and they have to leave the house. They now have to travel or have to wait for a bus to pick them up, and then they will have to return home on evenings with some kind of transportation, or they will may have if they're living close to the school, they now have to walk home. So parents, you can start creating that kind of sleep wake system where students know or your child now knows that they can't really stay up as late as they used to because things are going to be different. They now have to get up a little earlier. Uh, Third thing, and this is what teachers can do. Teachers, you can start communicating with students about what reentry will look like. So before they will have come to class, the bell goes or the buzzer goes off, they rush into class. Now it's going to be a little different. Maybe their temperatures are going to be checked. Their their face mask, they will have to make sure that they have their face mask on, sanitize, maybe wash their hands before they enter into the classroom. So you can start sending out messages to students, letting them know this is what is going to happen. Even though some of the students may be on break from school, you can still send out these messages, letting them know what will now be expected from them when they enter into the school system face to face. The fourth thing that teachers can do is start designing your lessons around projects, project-based assignment instead of individual type work. What you will now have to treat with is that a number of the students may not feel as comfortable um, socializing or interacting with each other. So in a safe way, you now have to create projects that they can um, interact with each other or work on together so as to build that association, to build that friendship, to build that sense of we depend on you, we are working as a group. Of course, the projects that you're going to design is going to be done in such a way that the students are going to be safe and they're going to enjoy what they're doing nonetheless. And the fifth point that teachers and parents can start generating is excitement. And I mean, reentry is something is going to be different. Teachers, you now have the opportunity to interact face to face. You're not going to be home where after you switch your camera off, you're home. You now have to be in a classroom, be in a staff room, and you will have to become excited about that once more. Parents, likewise, you too will now have to generate that excitement around, okay, students, my child, you're going to go back into the school system. And it's true, we're not going to be home together as we were for many months. Nonetheless, we are going to see each other on mornings or we're going to see each other on evenings. We're going to spend time together still. So that bond will continue because that bond will have been created for many months where parent and child will have been in the same house and pretty much seeing each other for a number of hours as compared to before. And now that they're going back into the school system face to face, that re-entry, you're not going to be seeing them as much. So it will be an emotional time for all involved, teachers, parents, and students. But once we follow some of these tips, or all these 5 tips, we can make the re-entry as smooth as possible and reduce significantly the level of anxieties that the students will face, and even the level of anxiety that you as a teacher and parent may face if you start following these principles as early as possible. It was nice again talking to you. Remember, subscribe, like, and hit that notification button so that you will see when new videos come out. So until, take care.